here on CBS Sports HQ. So the NFL draft is in the books. Now we look ahead to a new football season, and we're starting with a nice highlight of Trevor Lawrence completing a pass. That's what we like to see in Duval County. It's a new year to achieve the ultimate goal, winning a Super Bowl, that is. And we're going to go through some players who have a chance to prove it, if you will, in 2025. We talked about Trevor Lawrence, also Marvin Harrison Jr. That was a guy that we know success is in his blood. So maybe we'll see him unlock his potential. And then Max Crosby, a huge game wrecker for Las Vegas, and he just signed that big contract with a new regime in Vegas with Pete Carroll, a new quarterback, and Geno Smith and Ashton Jeanty there as well. So a lot of question marks, maybe a prove it year there in Vegas. Let's welcome in Bryant McFadden. And BMac, we're going to go through your top 5 players who have a prove it year, if you will, coming up in your opinion. And we're going to go straight to the Colts quarterback room and Anthony Richardson, because we have seen flashes of greatness, his athleticism on full display, but it certainly feels like a prove it year for Anthony Richardson. Tell us why he's coming in at number 5 on your list here.
Yes, this is a prove-it year for Anthony Richardson, because you look at his 2-year stint so far in Indy, it's safe to say the meter has not been moved. He's oftentimes been injured, and then when he's been on the football field, Jacqueline, you talked about the few flashes that we've seen, but we've seen more lows than highs. And because of all of that, guess what they decided to do, the organization? They decided to bring in legit competition for Anthony Richardson. They brought in Daniel Jones, signed him to a deal, and they have made it known to all of us, this is a legit competition. Allow the best man to win. And for Anthony Richardson, being a former top 5 draft pick, it's imperative for him to put forth his best effort. He has to prove it not only to himself, but to the organization. Yes, I hit the switch, my light is on, and I'm ready to be a consistent guy. Because it's safe to say in 2 years, we haven't seen that. He's been injured, 4 games in 2023, only 11 games in 2024. In that span, 11 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, an 8-7 win-loss record. That's not moving the meter, especially when you look at what some of the other young quarterbacks are doing for their said organizations. So for Anthony Richardson, all the marbles, they have to be in the table. He has to go out and prove it to himself and to the organization. Yeah, you brought Daniel Jones in, but he's not winning this job. Because if Daniel Jones wins this job in Indy, I don't know how much longer the organization will be willing to wait it out for Anthony Richardson, understanding and knowing that he is not the starter moving forward if he loses this battle to Daniel Jones.
Yeah, and shortly after Daniel Jones got there in Indy, they were quick to say immediately that those two are going to split the first team snap. So it's, you know, to your point, it's very quick to making those announcements there. So we'll have to see what shakes out in the quarterback room there in Indianapolis. Let's talk about another quarterback who is, you know, in a prove-it year, if you will. Also dealt with some injuries in Derek Carr, and this is also a new era that we're seeing in NOLA with Kellen Moore at the helm. So why is this a prove-it year for Derek Carr in your eyes, BMac?
Well, the injuries for Derek Carr clearly is not a bright sign. He only played in 10 games a year ago, and it seems like the organization and the relationship between Derek Carr is not neatly tight. You talked about this new regime, new coaching staff. They're not invested in Derek Carr. They're basically inheriting Derek Carr. So if Derek Carr is not healthy, seeing what this team, this organization, they've done in the last 2 drafts. Remember, in 2024 draft, they went out and drafted Spencer Rattler. We saw what they just did in 2025, the NFL draft, went out and drafted Tyler Shuck in the 2nd round from Louisville. So it's safe to say that time is clicking for Derek Carr. Number 1, Jacqueline, he has to be healthy. Because if he is healthy, clearly he is the best quarterback option for this team. And if he's healthy, he has to go out and put forth his best effort to remain the starting quarterback. But let's say he's not healthy enough. We might not get a chance to see Derek Carr try to show his worth for this organization, seeing what they've done in the draft in terms of investments at the quarterback position. So for Derek Carr, this is definitely a prove-it year for him in New Orleans, and the same can be said throughout the entire National Football League, because he still has aspirations of playing this game and playing at a high level, and most importantly, being a starter. This is his best opportunity to be a starter, is with the New Orleans Saints, and it starts with health. Health is the main key ingredient for him to be able to show everyone, especially New Orleans, I'm still the best quarterback and option for this team.
So, B-Mac, so far we've had 2 quarterbacks on this list, and coaches aren't immune to prove-it years as well. And we're seeing that with number 3 here. We're talking about Brian Daboll. We know that Joe Schoen's patience is running thin when it comes to winning. That Giants offense has not been great, to say the least, over the past season or so. But why does it come down to Daboll in your eyes, and it's really a prove-it year for him?
Well, the last 2 years for Brian Daboll, and collectively speaking for the Giants, they haven't been good. I mean, the last 2 years, a 9-25 win-loss record. They won 3 games in 2024. 9-25 over the last 2 seasons. That's not good, efficient football at all. And that's hard to say for the former coach of the year in 2022, when he was able to get the Giants to the playoffs, and they kind of shook up some things a little bit. But this is a prove-it year for that particular reason. The last 2 seasons, they've been a dud. So now when you look at what they've done, ownership, they stayed patient with Brian Daboll. They stayed patient with Joe Schoen. They allowed them to go ahead and try to assemble the best team possible. You look at the 3 new quarterbacks on the team. Brian Daboll had a lot to do in that, in those quarterbacks being selected. Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston, and of course trading back in the first round to get Ole Miss starting quarterback, former Ole Miss Rebel, Jackson Dart. So it's safe to say this is a prove-it year for Brian Daboll, being the head man in charge for the New York Football Giants. He has to show a competitive nature being created there, consistency day in and day out, and most importantly, finding ways to win ball games than finding ways to lose ball games. And that has been the storyline for the New York Giants over the last 2 seasons, Jacqueline. They've found every way possible to lose ball games. And that's why, for me, for Brian Daboll, this is a prove-it year, because it's safe to say ownership, they would not tolerate another 3 or 4 win season. That's not the standard in New York, especially for the Giants. So Brian Daboll, he needs to put forth his best effort.
Yeah, to your point, 9 wins in the last 2 seasons is certainly not where the Giants want to be in a market that has high expectations, under a lot of scrutiny, always. Let's go to number 2 here, and it's a player that might not be so obvious to be on this list, and we're talking about Christian McCaffrey, of course, who, when he's healthy, he is a difference maker, B-Mac. But why is 2025 going to be a big prove-it year for CMC?
For me, Christian McCaffrey, you said it best. When he's healthy, you don't question anything with his football ability. But can he stay healthy? Let's go back to his early years in Carolina. Remember, his last 3 seasons in Carolina, couldn't stay healthy. He played in, 3 games, and then you talk about 7 games, and then 6 games. Injuries have been associated with Christian McCaffrey, even though he's been great when he's been on the football field. He will be 29 years old before the start of the season. And you know what they say about those running backs that are trending towards that 30 mark? Potentially seeing a decline. I don't believe in that, but that's what naysayers are saying. But for Christian McCaffrey, knowing that injuries have followed you so much throughout your professional career, you want to show the organization there in San Francisco, I can stay healthy, I'm durable enough to give you the production. Because you look at his 3 years in San Francisco, outside of that great year he had during that Super Bowl run, he's been injured. He's only played basically a full season once in San Francisco in his 3-year stint. He only played in, 4 games last year. 0 rushing touchdowns, only 200 yards when he was in the lineup. So for Christian McCaffrey, this is a prove-it year, because you have to show the organization there in San Francisco, I can be healthy. I had a fantasy conversation with one of my friends, and we talked about potentially drafting Christian McCaffrey high in the first round. And I stated the backup quarterback in San Francisco, they're just as important as Christian McCaffrey, because you don't know if Christian McCaffrey can stay healthy. And that says a lot for all the fantasy players that are watching us. If I'm lying, stop me, because you know how valuable the backup running back has been in San Francisco while Christian McCaffrey has been there, because he's been injured more so than healthy. So that's why I'm saying this is a prove-it year for CMC.
B-Mac, Jordan Giorgio over here drafted Christian McCaffrey #1 overall in our fantasy league last season. At the time, I was very jealous, but I mean, to your point, only 4 games that he played in the 2024 season because of injuries. So certainly a prove-it situation for him. Finally, last but certainly not least, B-Mac, we're talking about #1. I don't know if you were watching the video that we had off the top, but it was a gorgeous pass from Trevor Lawrence, a nice completion that we saw. we know there are interceptions as well. Trevor Lawrence is #1 on your list when it comes to having a prove-it year, and I have a sneaking suspicion it has to do with some of those interceptions.
Yeah, inconsistent plays, staying hurt. There's a lot to go with Trevor Lawrence being my #1 player that's coming into a prove-it situation. But here's why. Let me break it down for you. When you look at Trevor Lawrence, his overall win-loss record, 22-38, right? Last 3 seasons, right? And you can throw out that rookie year with Urban Meyer. He's 19-24 the last 3 seasons. He got paid after his 3rd year. Many people felt like that was a bit premature. They kind of rushed to give him that record-breaking deal. But, of course, he received the deal. You look at what he did last year. Jacqueline played in 10 games. In that 10-game span, he was 2-8. 2-8. 2 wins, 8 losses. Threw 11 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. So because of how bad their team was, they fired the coaching staff. Doug Peterson is out of the building. So guess what this organization in Duval decided to do? They wanted to find a coach that can basically get the best out of their young quarterback. So they went out and got one of the more coveted offensive minds in the game in Liam Cohen. Well, why Liam Cohen is very, very important into my discussion? Well, you look at his 1 year in Tampa as the OC, being hands-on with who? Baker Mayfield. We saw all-world numbers from Baker Mayfield. You don't believe me? Listen, completed 71% of his passes, threw 4,500 yards while throwing 41 touchdowns, and he did so with Chris Godwin missing 10 games. He did those numbers with Mike Evans missing 3 games. So if Liam Cohen could make magic happen with Baker Mayfield, what are the expectations for Trevor Lawrence, who many would say is a more talented thrower of the football, who is a more talented quarterback in totality than Baker Mayfield? One would say Duval need to stand up, because if Baker Mayfield can do that with Liam Cohen, just imagine what our guy, Sunshine, can do with Liam Cohen as the head coach. And one more for me in terms of being a prove-it year. During the draft, we got prepared and we saw how the draft was orchestrated and who was slotted to pick where. Guess what Jacksonville did? You know what? We want to continue to add more weapons around our young quarterback. We traded up and got the best wide receiver and the best cornerback in the draft, best overall player in Travis Hunter. So now you throw him into the category. Yes, Trevor, no excuses, not anymore. Baker threw for 40-plus touchdowns and 4,500 yards, completed 71% of his passes with your head coach. We need that plus more.
We do. We do need. I'm speaking for all of Duval County. I'm very impressed by your Duval, BMAC, but you're right. You're throwing to BTJ and Travis Hunter. You got to make those passes and complete it. There are no excuses. Brian, we certainly appreciate it as we were talking about your 5 players you're watching that are in a prove-it year come the 2025 season. And we have everything you need to know right here on CBS Sports HQ as we are counting down the days until the NFL season officially kicks off. But in the meantime, news, scores, and then eventually highlights once the game comes back. It is all here on HQ, and it is all for free.